Hello art majors. Today I'm going to show you guys a little bit about pencil, about value, and about your value scale, and different techniques to make value and how to use your different pencils. So I have in front of me, I have my own pencil set that I get. This is mine. I have one at home and I have one here. I love this brand of pencils. I think that they are awesome. I use them a lot. And my pencil set has 20 different pencils in it. So your pencils that I gave you, you all have a couple H pencils, you have an HB, and a couple B pencils. So in my set, I have the ones that I use most often turned around, so they're easy to grab. But my set ranges from a 9B all the way to a 9H. And you don't need all of these. Like I said, in my own drawings, I only use about these 5 different pencils. Also, in your kits, you guys have like a soap eraser, which was that white chunk eraser. This is the same thing, but I cut them into smaller pieces. And then you guys have what is called a kneaded eraser. So you have 2 different erasers in your art kits. You should have a ruler. They were available. And then you have your pencils and you have your paper. So pencils. If you haven't really used different pencils before in your drawings, this is going to be new. And it's a little confusing at first because at the back of your pencils, they all have a letter and they have a number. The higher the number, the darker or the lighter the pencil is. The lower the number, the more towards the middle it is. So you have H pencils on one end. H pencils have a harder graphite, so they're lighter. They don't come off on the paper as easily. B pencils have softer graphite, so when you use them and shade with them, more of the graphite comes off and it makes it darker. So if you think of, like, the best example I can think of is like if you have a stick of butter and it's hard in the refrigerator and you were to like spread it on something, it's hard to spread. It doesn't want to shade, if you will. But if you have that same stick of butter that you left it on the counter and it softens up and you like spread it across something, a lot of it comes off. So H pencils, hard pencils, they're your lighter pencils. B pencils are darker and they're your softer pencils. So here I think the similar variety to what I gave you guys. I have a 6B, I have a 4B, I have a 2B, an HB, and a 2H. So an HB pencil is your middle pencil. This is a number 2 pencil. So all those pencils you have to use for your Scantrons or regular pencils that you buy, they're an HB pencil. That's your middle of the road pencil. Technically, you could do all of this with just your number 2 pencil, but it makes it a lot more difficult, and you can't get those really light grays that you can get using the H pencils. So you really want to use a variety of pencils if you haven't already. So with these pencils, I'm going to show you, and I'm going to use the scratch paper here, kind of the difference between the pencils as far as if I press hard or if I press light with them. So 6B, like I said, is the hardest pencil. So 6B. You have it if you press really hard with it. If you press really hard with it, you get a really, really dark black, which is really lots of reflection here. And if I press really light with it, this is the lightest that I'm going to get. So that's a 6B pencil, and that's pressing really hard and really softly. A 4B pencil, same thing. It's not as soft as the 6B, so that's pressing very hard. This is pressing really lightly with it, like if I was barely touching the surface of the paper. So you can see. A 2B pencil. If I press hard, you see my pencil line is a lot thinner. And if I'm pressing really lightly, I'm able to get a little bit of a lighter gray. Then you have your HB pencil. I press really hard, and then I press really light. So you can see I've got my so you can see how it progressively gets lighter as you go along. You can also notice, and I'm not sure if you can see it as well in the video as in person, but like if you look at this shaded part where I press really lightly, you can see a lot of that paper through there. Whereas over here, you can see where I shaded it, it's more gray and more even. It's not as flat. So that's another reason why you want to start with your H pencils. And then I have a 2H. If I press really hard, and then if I press really lightly. It's something that you really want to keep in mind with your H pencils. If you do press really hard, which you should not be using your H pencils to get very hard. The H pencils you use for your light shading, don't even try and use them to get darker shading because it's not going to work. And because they're hard, they're going to dig into your paper. So like I can feel my pencil marks in my paper here, and it's ruined it. If I erase this, these grooves are still going to be there. So you never want to press hard with an H pencil. And then the last one that I think you guys have is a 4H or a 6H. It's a higher H. You can see if I press really hard with this, and then if I shade it really lightly. So you can see by using the different pencils, it makes your job a lot easier. So if you're trying to shade something in and make it look realistic, use your different pencils and it will help you. So you're not just using the how hard you press with the pencil, you're using the actual graphite in it itself. It will make your life a million times easier. Do not try and do this with just one pencil. Okay? So what you guys are going to do, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make three different value scales. And let me move this closer. So you have your ruler, and some of you have inches on one side and then centimeters on the other side. Some of you have inches on both sides. But the one thing you really want to pay attention to, obviously, is that you're using the inches. Also, though, that like some of the rulers don't start at the edge of the ruler; they come in a little bit. So make sure that you're starting to measure right where it comes in and starts to actually measure, not on the end right here. And this is where you're going to fit 3 rectangles that are 9 inches long by 1 inch wide. So 3 different ones. So you need to make sure you leave enough space to fit 3 different ones on this paper. I do not expect you, or you don't have to like perfectly measure it out unless you want to. Some people want to do that. But I do expect you to fit it on there. And I also, do not trace around the ruler because this is bigger than an inch, and I will know that you traced around the ruler. But what you're going to do is line up the edge of your paper with the edge of the ruler, and it's 12 inches long, and I want it to be 9 inches long, so that leaves me 3 extra inches. So the paper's 12 inches, I need 9 inches, so I have 3 extra left over. So what I'm going to do is come in 1.5 inches on each side. So come in 1.5 inches, come in 1.5 inches on this side, and then I would move down here, make sure I line up my ruler properly. Same thing, 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches, just so that I have something to line up my ruler with. So I'm also going to use those 2 spots. My paper is 9 inches long, and remember, each one has to be 3 inches. So what I'm going to do is, or each one has to be 1 inch, which means I need 3 inches of space. So what I did was come in 1 inch from the paper, make a line that's 1 inch long, go 1.5 inches, make a line that's 1 inch long, go 1.5 inches, a line that's 1 inch long. But you do not have to do it perfectly like I did that either. As long as you can fit them on this piece of paper, that's fine. So same thing, inch, and then I give 1.5 inches space. I do another inch line, 1.5 inches space, another inch line. And if I did it properly, they're going to line up. And I know that they're 1 inch long or 9 inches long because I made that mark earlier. So I go and I just connect my line from 1 to 9. I connect the bottom here. 1 to 9. One to 9. One to 9. So now I have my 3 rectangles. So you can see them right there. I'm going to turn out these lights and see if this makes it any easier on this camera. All right, now you see my lines. It's a little dark, but that's okay. All right, so I have my 3 rectangles that are 1 inch long, and they're 9 inches, or 1 inch wide and 9 inches long. So now I need to divide these up into 1 inch boxes. So if I have a 9 inch long rectangle, and I divide it every inch, how many boxes will I have? Answer, that's going to be 9. So 9, I come in an inch. Now I have my lines, and I'm going to connect them within the boxes so that ultimately you have 9 boxes in each rectangle. So you're going to end up making a 9-step value scale. Each one of these boxes is going to be a different shade or tint. So your goal is to create 9 different values, each one different from the next, so they shouldn't kind of blend in together. You should be able to tell the difference. And I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to tell you again, you always want to start with the lighter side and work your way down. Because what you do is you can always get darker. You can always add more graphite. You can always press a little harder. You can always make it darker if they're too close. However, once you get down here, if you start from the dark end and come up, if it's too dark, you can try to erase, but you're not fixing it. So always, always, always go from the light to dark. So light, down. Work your way down. Light to dark. Light to dark. Also, if you're right-handed, you want to go light to dark just because you're working here. You don't want to drag your hand through what you've already drawn. So if this is all done and your hand's sitting on it, it's going to smear it all over the place. So light to dark, light to dark. The first square, you always leave white. So always leave this white. All 3 of them, these stay white. You do not shade anything in these squares. So the first one that you're going to do is going to be blending. So what I would do is label. So you have blending, we have hatching, and we have cross hatching. For blending, you're going to take your highest H, so most likely a 4H. You're going to leave this one white. And what you're going to do is you're going to color in this square. And you're going to color it in by pressing as lightly as you can with the pencil. Now, I'm going to show you how to kind of blend your pencil lines together a little bit. But what I do not want you to do is to smudge it. So don't get a paper towel. Don't get a tissue. Use nothing. You are not smudging. You're not scribbling and smearing it, which is what a lot of people try to do to save time. The proper way to shade is you actually cover the surface with the pencil. So ideally, you do not see any pencil lines at all. All you see is one flat color. And I'm not going to sit here and color this in for you and make you watch me do that, but one flat color. So you can overlap your lines, you can go all different directions, but you're actually physically coloring in that box. Now, once that whole box is colored in, if you see pencil lines, you use your fingertip to gently rub that right there. That's it. You're not smearing it, you're not smushing it all over the page, you're gently rubbing it with your finger. The next one that you're going to do is hatching. Now, this is this same thing. First box stays white. Hatching are parallel lines. And they're not like perfectly marked out lines, like measured like mathematically. They're just all the lines go in the same direction. And you're going to achieve the same idea, the same look of value, because you are pressing lightly and you're using the right pencil. And hatching and cross hatching go much faster than blending. So don't think just because blending takes a while. Hatching and cross hatching are not going to take that long. So you can see how you can't see it. I'll show you this as soon as it's done. And then cross hatching are in crossing lines, different directions. So you're crossing in all different directions. Same thing. Your cross hatching lines are going to different directions. So they're crossing lines. So here is and then as you move along, you're going to get a little bit darker as you go. And you'll see, if you look at my example that's posted, you'll see this much clearer. But hatching lines are, you really can't see these at all. Hatching lines are all in one direction. Cross-hatching are crossing in different directions. So as you see the work, you'll see people going in different directions all over. They should not look like X's, but they should be crossing. So by the time you're done, here's my finished example. I have my blending, I've got my hatching, and I have my cross-hatching. So you can see how each box gets a little bit darker than the one before it. You should try and keep everything within your boxes. They shouldn't go all over the place. And each box should get a little darker. So start light, gradually get darker, and then you can press harder as you go down. Switch up your pencils. So start with your H pencils. Add your 2H, get a little bit darker. If you keep going and can't get any darker, that's when you move on to your HB pencil really lightly. Then HB you press pretty hard, HB really hard, then 2B, and work your way down throughout.